And now we wait. Oh, blue collar voices. All right. Hopefully, we're good to go here. Hmm. Oh, dang it. Hi.
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 Hi, Allison.
Hi.
I'm just getting my live stream started. Oh, that's your mother. Nice. Good job. I had my live stream unlisted to start out for some reason today. So I had to fix that, which it does not help when you make your live streams unlisted. Because then people don't know you have one. Even though you send out the message to say you're doing it, if you don't make it public, they can't see it.
Did you public it?
I did. I fixed it. It's now public. So,
Hey, now you have two.
Yep, somebody else joined us. I guess making this public helps.
Yeah.
Whoever it was dropped, so that was either Landon or somebody else. Okay, Allison hiding back there. Okay, let Grandpa do his live.
Okay.
Okay, you guys have a good night, though. All right.
Okay.
Is that you still out there, Landon, or did I pick somebody else up? Oh, it is Landon. Okay. All right. Well, I can see I've got Landon there, but now that I've made this a public stream, which really helps if you want people to join your live to make it public and not unlisted, which unfortunately that's the way it started out. Thankfully, we got that fixed, and it is available now for anybody. Which means that it is 5:32. We kind of hope that it doesn't cause confusion. All right. Now we're just waiting to see who we get here. Landon, if you're still there, you're wondering what's going on. I had this listed as unlisted, not public, which I've done once before. So when you do lives, sometimes you go in and you get it all set up and you forget to check that it's public. And if you upload videos from your phone unlisted, and then you go on your computer to set up a live, it will automatically put it as unlisted and not public. And so you run into this issue where you're sitting here wondering, how come nobody sees that I'm live? Well, it's because you said it so they couldn't see that you were live. So you got to go fix it. But it looks like it is fixed. It is now public. So we should be able to get going once we get a few folks joining. And when you join, let me know you're here, because otherwise I can just see the number of folks and don't get to see who it is. So if you drop a chat down below, let me know you're here. That really helps. So welcome to those that are joining now. Now that I made this public, not unlisted and hidden. I've done that twice now. But be sure to drop a comment down below and let me know who's here. And obviously, as always, throw your questions in. The sooner you get your questions in, the sooner I can answer them. I usually do a quick channel whatever update ahead of answering Q&A type stuff. So we'll do that here once we get a few folks, and then we'll fire away from there. But if you've got questions, drop them in right away. That way I've got them on my list and I can go run through them as soon as we get some folks here and I go through my channel update. Meanwhile, we'll just sit here and I'll start telling a story pretty soon. One of my grandkids is on right now. He started a YouTube channel, but then he kind of quit doing it. He's doing Twitch now, playing games. Hey, Desert Hobo. It's been a while. I haven't seen you in a while, but it is Bourbon 30. Although I have to have to have less bourbon 30 these days, thanks to too many NSAIDs. Good times, right? But anyway, I was saying probably around the time you joined that I made the mistake once again of setting this up. Kids are keeping you busy, I bet, especially summer. But I originally set this live up, blasted it out there, and didn't realize that it was going out as unlisted. And that happens if you do anything on your phone, especially if you do shorts, which sometimes I still do. You go do a short, if you set it unlisted when you load it, or even videos on your computer, it makes that the default. And so you go build a live, which why you'd have a live unlisted, I don't know. It automatically sets it to unlisted. So if you didn't if you didn't notice that, you're like, nobody's joining me today. I guess because they can't see it. Yeah, no, they can't see it. So anyway, that's good fun. Oh, Landon says there's a delay. Well, Landon, that's too bad for you. He's literally downstairs, grandkids. But he is actually the main grandkid. That's the reason I started doing YouTube more seriously. So we got to give him that. And that's that GD exotic on there, folks, if you see that. I'm not sure what the GD stands for. I have some ideas, but he's only 12, so I'm thinking it's probably not what I'm thinking. Desert Hobo. I haven't heard you from you haven't heard from you in a while, and I was thinking about you not too long ago, and I was thinking, gosh, I haven't seen you in a while. There's a few others. Alyssa, I haven't seen. There was somebody else that used to always join the lives in well, Dean. I haven't seen Dean in a while. But I also realize it's summer and a lot of folks are just out there making sawdust. So I get it, right? But anyway, we're gonna get. I'm gonna get going with an update here very shortly. And as I mentioned before, if you've got questions for me, drop them in the chat. That way, I know you've got them, and I can get to them as soon as I get my update done. And if you see grandkids running around that have been featured in one of my more recent videos, that's because they're here and they're hanging out. They came out for their great grandmother's birthday. So one of them staring at me right now, right over here at the corner of my eye. The Allison. I need to put up an Allison cam again. I don't know if you guys saw that laser video, but I put up a little camera for Allison. I called it the Allison cam. But anyway, time we got? It's almost 20 of. So I think I'll go ahead and I'll give it like maybe another minute or so. Oh, there's Landon, Mr. GD Exotic. But I'll do a channel update real quick. Okay, guys, the grands, they got to get involved. Well, they're the reason I do it. So yes, Allison, we can see you there.
I know.
Okay. All right, so we're going to get going. Miss Allison here is the feature for tonight. We'll do a interview later, I think. Catch Allison and maybe Landon too. Nothing like having your grandkids. All right, guys, that's enough. Get there. That's how you take care of them. Except for, there you go. All right, so first of all, we'll get into some channel updates for you. You may have noticed a whole lot more videos coming out. I am hell bent to get 3 out a week again. It's been a long time. As many of you know, those of you that have been around a while, I used to put out 3 a week. And then I took that job, and of course, that 3 a week fell off, and it got down to just 1 a week. And I put out a whole lot of shorts, which I know a lot of you probably on the live are less likely to be interested in shorts. But it kind of kept the channel alive, and I still do them occasionally. And part of that is because, strangely enough, of my 10,000 subscribers, about 8,000 of those are short subscribers. So I do try to put out some shorts every once in a while for them too. I don't want to forget everybody or anybody. So I still do those a little bit now and then. I won't totally quit doing shorts, but my goal at this point is to get back to doing 3 videos a week for you as much as possible. And I'm working on some format stuff. And so you may have noticed that some of that is going to be just me chatting to you about some things. I got another one coming out Tuesday, and I also have Thursdays teed up already. Excuse me. And they will be going out Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. So that's the plan. I will tell you, I should be milling in the woods next week, not this coming week, but the next week. So it'll be interesting to see if I get all 3 videos done for you and teed up for you before I leave, because when I leave, I'll have no coverage. And I'll be gone for 8 or 9 or 10 days. And so during that time, I'm hopeful that I can get those videos out for you. Otherwise, it'll be delayed, and you may see that little bit of a gap next week, Labor Day weekend week, because hopefully I'll be out milling. Now, one of the upcoming videos, a little insider scoop for those of you here on the live today, one of the upcoming videos is I discovered I did not fix my sawmill. So if you watch the video where I said I fixed my sawmill, guess what? Didn't happen. And I think it's kind of funny. I will tell you that there's a little light on those Kohler engines that you really shouldn't ignore. And mine quit working on me. And if you're curious about these EMP shield videos, by the way, I'll just throw this out there. That little light on my Kohler engine quit on me, and something else is faulted out on me as well. And I lost the control panel. And we get a lot of lightning up there at the cabin. So that's what those are all about. That's what started that whole thing. I've actually known about those guys for a very long time, but I finally got tired of this. I'm going to take the cabin up there, or the cabin. I'm going to take the sawmill up to the cabin, and we got lightning all this week. And I thought, oh gosh, lightning can play havoc all over your electronics. So that's what that's all about. But in any case, I discovered that little 12-volt light on my Kohler motor was out. And I just hadn't noticed it in a while. You run your mills, sometimes something little like that. It used to just come on and then go out, and it just quit coming on. Well, I should have paid attention to that and replaced that light about 2 or 3 years ago, because it would have told me what was wrong back in April had I had that light. So that video is coming up. I believe that one drops Tuesday. And then I've got another one dropping on Thursday I think you might enjoy. And I've got a couple more that I'm working on for next week while I'm gone milling. But then I will be back to milling as long as Woodmiser gets my part to me, which I'm working on. I know they're shipping me the light already, but they didn't ship the O2 sensor I need. That I'm hoping that I'm going to get next week. Otherwise, I won't be milling. So that's a little. Now you know what one of those videos is going to be about. But and how about the sparks flying in the one video? I don't know if you saw that, but I haven't done that in a long time, so that was a bit of a shocker. So if you haven't seen that video, go back and watch the lightning video. I let some sparks out. But all right. So anyway, channel updates. That's kind of it. 3 videos a week as much as possible for the foreseeable future, and I may do that for an extended length of time. So one of the things about those, if you have questions and you send those questions to me either on Facebook or through the channel, through PMs or whatever, comments, or drop your questions right down here right now in the comment section below. Not the comment section, the chat section, sorry. Then if I get those questions when I'm not on a live, I will try to address those for you in a video as much as I can. So just know that if you've got some burning questions and you send them to me, I might just put a video out for you on those. If not, we'll do some questions here. Hey, Arrowhead, there you are, buddy. Nice to see you. By the way, cool. That's cool shorts you're putting out lately. But anyway, so again, if you've got questions, be sure to put them in the chat right now. It should be I don't know if you're on a computer, it should be on the right-hand side of your screen. You just click in there, type your questions right there. Then I will answer those, and generally in the order that you throw them out there. If you find that valuable or you want lots of questions answered, I'm going to answer everyone I can. But there's a little $sign down there. If you decide that you want to support the channel, that's how you would do it. And anybody that does that, you get your questions answered first and foremost. So just kind of a little heads up for you. Dean told me to do that once. So I'm just throwing it out there. But anyway, that's it for the channel. For me, I thought I would give you a little update because I had a live scheduled last week and then I didn't do it. I canceled it literally at the last minute. I think it was roughly an hour before the live started. I finally said, I just can't do it tonight. And basically, in short, you all know I've got back trouble. Well, NSAIDs, too many years, too powerful, had a pretty negative impact on the old gut and gave me some ulcers. So that wasn't working out too good. So that's why I canceled that one. It was a rough night. So life is good. All is well. I did get the ablation, so that's helping quite a bit. I'm getting another one done in about 3 weeks. And meanwhile, I'm not quitting anyway. So, Pain is just weakness leaving the body. Unless you're a veteran, then it's arthritis, right? Mm. But in any case, so that's kind of what was going on there. Um, Definitely gearing up to put out a lot more videos since my job ended in July. So I am working very hard to do that and to answer any questions that you guys have. So if you got them, drop them down in the comment section below. Now, while I'm waiting for questions, I thought I would talk about a couple of videos at least that I put out fairly recently that I thought you might like to hear some of that inside story about. One of them is the Vancouver Island video, and I don't know if you saw that, but so that video, I think I called it Unbelievable Journey or something like that. And I just wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit while I'm waiting for questions. But in that video, I only really talked about the last part of that journey. I think I mentioned that we left at like 4:30 in the morning, and that we'll see you, Landon. Have a good night. But see you, Allison. You guys are leaving. But so we left about 4:30 in the morning, and the drive to the border from where we are in Eastern Washington is about 5 hours. And we knew that we had to time our arrival in Vancouver, British Columbia, kind of right to catch the ferry. I've caught those ferries for years. I used to live up there, so it's nothing new. So we drove up. We got there about 10:30 in the morning, knowing that there was an 11 sailing to Victoria and a noon sailing or something like that to Nanaimo on Vancouver Island. But you couldn't reserve any rides. That normally you could make reservations and you're fine. All those were taken up. So we got there, and it was going to be a one sailing wait to go to catch the ferry to Nanaimo. Now those are 2.5 hour sailings, so we were looking at waiting until like 2 o'clock or 2:30 in the afternoon, something ridiculous. And it's 10:30 in the morning, and they had a sailing to Victoria leaving right away. So we jumped on that boat and headed to Victoria. And it's going to the same place, just about an hour south of where Nanaimo is, and it's a nice drive from Victoria to Nanaimo. We got to Victoria, and Google started rerouting us all over the place. And it was absolutely insane. It took us over 3 hours to get from the ferry to Nanaimo. Then that hour long or 45-minute drive from Nanaimo to Port Alberni took us like over 5 hours. It was insane. So that's kind of what that was all about. It was just kind of one of those seriously crazy days where we were on the road 17 hours for what should have been, 6 hours, 6.5 hours of driving in a 2 hour ferry ride. So that's what. Hey, Timothy Christian, nice to see you. Getting that mail pretty soon, right? But and again, folks, if you have questions, be sure to put them in the chat, because that's what I'm going to pick up and answer for you whenever you drop them into the chat. Otherwise, I'll just keep telling you my stories. But anyway, so that was the story. And just so you know, I've said before, I grew up in British Columbia. I graduated high school in Port Alberni on Vancouver Island. And so that's why we were headed there. And I actually thought about looking up some sawmills to try and bring in some sawmill stuff. But unfortunately, we spent so much time traveling when we normally wouldn't have, that we were just done by the time we got there. And then the weekend that we were there was a sawmill we could have gone and checked out, but we just pretty much had it. So that's what was going on there. Pick it up on the 8th of September. Oh boy. I saw somebody else was getting one in December, like Christmas present too. So that's awesome. But all right. So that's kind of that's what that video was all about. The wildfire video, excuse me, we filmed that not knowing what we were going to get into. We had actually planned on leaving the next day, not that day. And again, if you haven't seen these, they're on the channel. You can go check them out. But that one, that's probably not more than 15 miles from our property, the cabin, where sometimes you see these videos. It's on our property. Those are a big deal, right? And we know wildfires all over the place right now, though. Arson is setting a lot of those. But and so we worry about that. You get a big windstorm that comes through, and somebody lights off a fire like that. Oh man, it can rip through 60 miles of forest in no problem flat. I've seen them go 60 miles out there in that arid forest in a matter of 1 to 2 hours. So it is really crazy. So that's why I kind of filmed that going through, really not knowing what we were going to see in the end. And that's what we ended up with. So we were lucky there. Okay, Desert Hobo, awesome, buddy. One of these days we'll get you on here when you're not putting kids to bed. But I was thinking about you. Absolutely. Okay, no, go. We'll see you guys. Love you. Have a good night. All right, the kids are all leaving now. But anyway, so that's what that was all about. And there was another one I was going to tell you about while waiting for questions. Again, if you got questions, drop them down there into the chat. That's the only way I can answer them for you. Don't put them in the comments because I won't see them right now. You have to put it in the live chat, which is usually over on the right hand side if you're on a computer. It should be over there. Click a little thing, type away, you get your questions answered. So most of you know that, I'm sure. But anyway, so what else have I got for you? I got a few things for you, I'm sure. But questions, of course, the main reason I do these lives, in case you're wondering, is so that you can ask questions. And I always say, I'll answer any questions, open book, right? Obviously, I'm expecting most of these to be about sawmilling and that kind of thing, but not necessarily. You want to know about off grid cabin power? Guess what? Yep, been there, done that. So if you want to know about the cabin, the property, clearing, whatever, I'll answer everything I can. I will not tell you that I'm the end all be all, knows everything there is to know about sawmilling or LT40s. And that's going to come up in a video coming out Thursday, I think. I think that's Thursday's video. Thursday's video, I think, oh, I'm going to say something to that effect in it. That's not what the video is about, but I will bring that up in the video because I notice sometimes you say things in videos and and guys are like, I don't necessarily agree with that. Well, that's okay. But, I'm just giving you my opinion. So, but I have done enough sawing that I have I think, some pretty good input to provide sawing wise. Yes, Logan, I know you guys are leaving. Have a good night. Love you. See ya. I think they just want to come up and get in the camera. Mm. So anyway, that's why I do these lives. It's so I can answer any questions you guys have. I don't mind blabbering away for a little while, but of course it helps if you drop your questions down there so I know what they are, or at least say hi and let me know who's here. I can see a count of people that are here, but I can't tell who's here. So I know Desert Hobo had to put his kids away. The Arrowhead Carpenters, your Woodsman. I always want to call you the Arrowhead Carpenter. I don't know why. But Timothy, you usually have questions to ask, so be sure to throw them out there for me. Let's see, what else have I got for you guys? So I talked about the mill. The mill's actually doing pretty good, other than this latest little issue that's going to come out on Tuesday, I think. I'm not sure, Tuesday or Thursday this week. I'll let you in on that one. And I mentioned it a little earlier. Otherwise, the mill's ready to go, and I'm going to be hooking it up to my truck tomorrow morning to drag it into the woods. The only question is whether Wood-Mizer gets back to me and says, yes, we've shipped the part to you. If they haven't, that's an issue. Speaking of the mill, some of you may remember the whole hydraulics fiasco that I went through and ended up replacing that pump motor. I finally tore that pump apart. That's a video I'm working on now. Not sure when that's going to come out, but I did finally tear that pump apart. The brushes were worn probably about halfway to maybe 2/3 down. So I'm convinced at this point that indeed it was the brushes that were bad that was causing all the trouble I was having with my hydraulics. Finally got some ash to cut yesterday. Oh, awesome. Tell me about it. I have not cut ash. So that'll be a new one for me. Did you put a video out there? But anyway, so yeah, hydraulics, I'm working on that video. The hydraulics are fine because I replaced that pump motor, but I am going to do a video on rebuilding that pump. Well, not really rebuilding it, tearing it apart, breaking it. Oh, yeah, I didn't mention that. Yeah, I broke it. But so I'm going to have to fix it. And I get to show you that. And trust me, I did not do that on purpose. Oh, good Lord. Okay, here you go. I know you said you use double hard blades and that you were changing from inch and a quarter to inch and a half, but which thickness? I've only used the 045s, and I've talked to guys that use the 052s, and they seem to break more. They claim they might cut flatter. I don't really have a problem with not cutting flat. So, I mean, look, if you're cutting waves, I can tell you right now, I don't care who you are. I don't. if you're running a band sawmill and you, well, at least a bandsaw mill that's not, Harbor Freight or something like that. Nothing against them, but I'm thinking they have a different drive system. But if you're using a wood miser with a drive belt type system, and you're cutting waves, the procedure is simple. And I see guys, I love this question in a way because it's good to ask questions, but I see guys answer it, and I think terribly all the time in groups on, particularly on Facebook. If you ask that question on places like Forestry Forum, you're not going to get these answers. But on the groups, a lot of times you'll see like, oh, your set is wrong. Stop. You're using the wrong band. No. I all kinds of different things. Look, if you're cutting waves, it's simple. Change the band. I mean, unless you just put the band on and you're cutting waves. But if you're cutting waves and you've been running that band for an hour or two, change the band. Drop it a quarter of an inch, take another cut. If it's still cutting waves, drive belt tension. That has to always be the number two choice. And it's really the number one choice. It's just that if you're cutting waves, you don't know. Maybe you hit some rocks, some dirt, some crap, and the band is dull. So you change the band first so that you got a nice fresh band on, so that you can confirm whether it is or is not the band. Because it's a heck of a lot faster to change a band, right? On an LT40, I can do it. Excuse me, I can do it in under 10 minutes and be cleaning stuff up. You could probably do it in 5 if I didn't clean anything, but I always do because it's just what you do. You pull the band off, clean your band wheels, clean your B57s, make sure there's no junk inside of them, blow out the sawdust, put the new band on, tighten it up, fire it up, and away you go. But if it's cutting waves again, stop, pull the covers off, check your drive belt tension. I would bet dollars to donuts that if you did that, you're on an LT40 with a 26 and a half horse motor, you're probably sitting at like 12 pounds. Get up to 14 and a half, away you go. You won't be cutting waves anymore. So that's number one. If you start cutting waves and your knots are this big in ponderosa pine, slow down a lot. That's one of the challenges of big knotty wood, is that when you get into the, you're in the soft part of that, it's soft wood, but if you're in the sapwood and you're not in the knots, it's really soft, it's nice and fresh and green, and you cut into that wood, you're ripping through it, no problem, and you hit that big 6 or 8 inch knot, if you don't slow down, it's going to start riding with with it. It's going to dive, it's going to climb. So you've got to back off. And that's hard to do if you can't see them. So it's really important. If you make that first cut and it waves out on a bunch of knots, next cut, drop it a quarter of an inch and slow down going through those. You could run it slow anyway, but slow down going through the knots. I mean, I'm assuming now that you've checked your drive belt tension and you're on a new band. So that's kind of one of the, I don't want to call it a pet peeve. It's just that I see guys answer that so strangely sometimes. You're, like I said, I've seen guys say your set's wrong. Your set's not wrong. I mean, some of the things that you hear are what I would say if you've done, X, Y, Z and everything else ahead of time, right? If you've checked your drive belt tension and your band is sitting at 3,000 PSI, and you got a fresh band on, and it's an appropriate band for the type of wood you're cutting, and you're watching your speed, you're not going too fast, you're not going too slow, et cetera, then okay, maybe we could look at some other options. But usually if you've got like a teeth out of set, you're going to get chatter marks all the way down the log, right? If you've ever seen that, where you cut down a log and it's cutting perfectly flat, but it seems like every inch or so you get a deeper groove, well, that's usually a tooth out of set. If you care, change the band. I don't. If it's cutting flat, I'm milling rough sawn lumber. I'm not milling S4S here. I'm milling rough sawn. It's definitely rough then, right? I mean, obviously, if the groove's really deep, well, maybe that's an issue. But if it's not more than, a 16th or 32nd of an inch, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to keep on going until the band's dull and take the band off, put another one on, away you go. You could swap it out if it mattered, but I'm more about, I want to get 2 hours on a band. And that's another thing. I see guys all the time. How long? I tried to go 6 hours and I couldn't. 2 hours. Wood Miser will tell you, and I've had multiple people at Wood Miser tell me this, 2 hours. It isn't about the board feet that you cut with the band. It's about the time that the band spends in the wood, because heat impacts how long it will stay sharp. And the longer it's in the wood, the hotter it gets. That's just how it goes. So if you think of it that way, it's kind of like using a knife, right? You can only use a knife so much. I know guys that will fillet fish, and every other fish, they hit the knife and sharpen it up again. Because if they just keep going, it's harder to sharpen. And that's one of the things the wood miser has told me directly was, if you push your bands, let's say instead of doing a band change every 2 hours, you do one every 4 to 6 hours. When they get it to sharpen it, they're just going to have to grind more off, which is going to take more sharpenings away from you. If you go every 2 hours and you can get 12 sharpenings, then if you go every 4 hours, you might get 6. That's basically what they're saying. Now, I'm not saying you're going to get 12. I'm just giving you an example of how that works. So there's not much point in pushing a band. Trust me, I've done it. I've run 7 hours on one band, and I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. I'm thinking, man, these 747 inch and a half, 7 hours. I want to run them every day. I don't anymore. 2 hours. That's it. But it works. It corresponds with. Okay, let me go back here and see what I got. Some stuff popping out here. It's a vid that covers the tension of the belt mentioned. Um, is the video? Oh, I have not done that video. So I've been and Ray. I'm gonna say Ray. I'm not sure. I'm REI. I'm gonna guess Ray. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Oh, let's see. We got some more chatter here. Before that, what's your thoughts on the laser? I'll give you that one. Dry belt tension. Do you mean blade tension? No, I mean dry belt tension. I was thinking of ordering a couple boxes from Woodmiser before the sale ends. If you're thinking of ordering bands, get a hold of. Oh my God, I can't believe his name is slipping me right now. Joe Main. You need to get a hold of Joe Main. I'm telling you, he will take care of you. But and if Woodmiser's having a sale, Joe's probably got the same sale, so you might want to see him. Free ship into the continental U.S. It's Woodmiser bands plus some of their own if you want those. But you need to get a hold of Joe Main. All right, so um, that's for Timothy. Yeah. Um, let's see. So the link. Oh, link is a Woodmiser. I didn't see a link here, buddy. So it's a vid that covers the tension of the belt. There may be a Woodmiser link. I've been asked to do one. I've been thinking about doing it. I did a little bit of one about a year ago, just as part of a job I was on, and I kept thinking about doing it. And I may do it this week because the mill's been sitting long enough. I probably should. I'll be honest with you. One of the reasons I've held off doing it is the difficulty of filming it, and that is a challenge when you're doing YouTube videos. Is sometimes it's difficult to get a camera to see what you're doing just because of where you're doing it, right? The cameras are typically behind you or in front of you, but not aiming in front of you. Now, I could put a chest rig on and that might help, and I may try that. And it may take a little bit of work, but I've been thinking about doing it. Now, I haven't checked Woodmiser's out. I have seen some of theirs in the past, so it might be a good video. But what do you know? We agree on something. Oh, we agree on a lot more than you think, buddy. Nice to see you, Craig. But that is a challenge, and so I'll have to check Woodmiser's out. And if it's a good video, I'm happy to share it. They do usually have good videos, but I'll be honest. I've done a lot of maintenance where Woodmiser did not have videos, and I've actually had Woodmiser say to me, "Hey, you could include this in your video." Or, hey, can you include this in your video? And I've done that, I think, because it's good stuff to share. Kind of like, don't leave the head of your sawmill, if you've got an LT35, LT40 and above with the hydraulics, don't leave the head of the sawmill sitting directly over the power strip for the hydraulics. Don't do that. Couple reasons. One, if you have an LT35 or an older LT40 and above sawmill, they don't have a solenoid in them. So anybody could run the hydraulics without the key. Apparently, that's an issue. It's how they steal sawmills. So on the LT40, they do have a solenoid, so the higher level mills. But the other issue is that they will compress the spring. So the way that system works is you've got, and I did a video, God, it's been several months now, but I do have a video out there on the hydraulics. And there's like a copper brass kind of block that sits on some springs, and it depresses in and out. So when you get off that copper strip, when you're moving forward, it's free to move forward. And then when you draw back, it bumps up onto that strip and makes that contact between the head and that big strip, so you could run your hydraulics. If you leave that sitting on there, I used to do it all the time too, folks. So we learn the hard way, some of us. But what can happen is it can weaken those springs, and that can cause you problems down the road. So just kind of don't leave the head sitting over the power strip. That's something that Wood Miser asked me to share. And that's because I think, let's be honest, they don't do a lot of videos. Um, a lot of guys like I do, and Craig's done some, and Arrowhead Carpenter's done, or Woodsman. Dang it, I'm going to get it right. So a lot of us do these videos, and I think Wood Miser's recognizing that, hey, if other guys are willing to do it, and frankly, some of us are doing it for free, but well, almost free. I won't say free. I am monetized on YouTube, so full disclosure, I do get $2 a day or from YouTube. It's not a lot. So if you want to know how much a YouTuber makes, I'm happy to share with you too. I said I'm an open book. All right. Anyway, so if you have a link to that video and you want to drop it, and Ray, if it's Ray, let me know. It may or may not work. If not, you can find me on Facebook, either Eric McVeigh or the Old Jarhead, and you can PM the link to me, and I'd be happy to share it. And I do that all the time, because that is a big one. There's a couple big things, I think, and I kind of talk about this in an upcoming video, but there's a couple things about owning a sawmill that, like I always tell everybody, you got to learn how to do an alignment. You got to learn how to do an alignment in the field. And if you haven't done one, it's time to do it. Because, and I don't mean you don't mess with the bunks. Don't mess with the bunks. But you got to be able to align the blade itself and the head itself, because you're going to lose bearings, right? Those things are going to happen. So you got to learn how to do those. Now, that's why I do those videos. I did one specifically about doing an alignment in the field. And you know what? I actually had, good Lord, my brain is fried tonight. Nathan came in and commented out of the woods, right? Nathan, I think so. I'm terrible. He's super chatted me before, and my brain is frying tonight. So anyway, and he thanked me for doing that one, and that was awesome to see that, right? Because I didn't think enough guys do it, so that's why I do it. And again, if you ask about that kind of stuff, I will always try to address that for you, whether I do it in a video or do it in a live. I'm always happy to answer those questions. So there you go. We talked waves. Yes, yeah. So Craig, I actually just suggested that to Timothy too, and I have Joe's link in some of my videos. A while ago I had him on there, but if you don't have his contact information, then drop it in a comment on this live. Joe often joins these lives, but because I don't do them every Sunday, sometimes he isn't able to make it, or he doesn't know it's there and he just doesn't join. But if you drop it in the comments, I will grab his contact for you and drop it in for you. Or if you're on Facebook, you can either reach out to me or Joe Main there, and we'll make sure you get it. If you put the question in like the Wood Miser group, I'm sure Craig will get in there before I do. So he's always on Facebook. All right. Oh, good Lord. Where are we at here? Just making sure I'm not. I knew I saw something else here by Arrowhead. You asked me, laser. Oh, thoughts on the laser. So that's a good question. So I have not been able to use my laser. So I've got the laser. I installed it. It works. I know I blew it up first. Totally. But I got a new one and got it all installed, got it working, thought it was the coolest thing since sliced bread. And the first chance I had to put it to use, I could see it if I held my hand in front of it, and that's it. Done. Can't see it. Well, it was very, very bright. High noon, bright sun. And I thought, well, of course you're not going to see it. Dummy, right? It's not going to work when there's super bright sun out. There's too much light. Lasers are going to work better in lower light. So I haven't had a chance to really put it to use. I'm looking forward to that. This fall, maybe into the winter, I should be doing a lot more milling. And so I might actually be able to put it to work and really get a feel for it. I personally think lasers are great. I I can tell you right now that Craig, the Kilted Sawyer right there, he's gonna agree with me, because the lasers, if you can see your laser, and I know if I'm inside or undercover, I see it all day long, right? When I was testing it in the shop, in my bright lights in my shop, I could see it perfectly. But as soon as I got outside in the bright sun, it in there. So, but I know that if I can use that laser, it is going to make a difference. One, if you watch my videos, you know that I'll pick the head up, go down to the middle of the log, drop the head on the log, pick it up, and come back, drop it an inch and a half, and away I go. And that's something I just developed. And honestly, one of the guys on Forestry Forum suggested it to me back in my LT10 days. So that gives you an idea. But I developed that because you really can't see that. I mean, if you want to take your time and measure with a tape measure and stuff, you can do that and figure it out. Okay, well, if I'm 8 inches here or 9 inches here, if I drop to this, it'll give me that. But I found that because I'm all about production, get it done now, and what I call economy of movement, right? The less movement I make, the more productive I'm going to be. So with a laser, I wouldn't have to do that. I could level the pith, and I probably would still measure that because I want to know that it's leveled, and I'm not going to see it on the other end. And if you're running a lot of ponderosa pine, I've seen it in fir too. Sometimes your pith isn't, it's not perfectly centered all the way through the log. So, I like to measure that. But after that, you're done. And you're going to be able to just pick your head up and shoot the laser down and go, yeah, that looks pretty good. And away you go. And you'll know if you're opening face, especially if you're going from the small end, you'll know if you're going to get a 4 to 6 inch opening face. And that, folks, if you're production sawing, that's your goal. 4 to 6 inches, go. Right? Yes, and I'm talking the first face, but there's lots of different ways to think about it. But if you're production sawing, your goal is to get as much done as you possibly can in the shortest period of time and be as accurate as possible doing it. That's your goal. So if you can run 500 board feet an hour for 8 hours, that's your goal. You don't want to be running 200 because you're spending so much time doing math and measuring things that you're not producing, right? Would a different color laser be better? Honestly, I talked to a lot of different guys. Most of them say no, but they think green is better than red. That seems to be the general consensus with the people that I run. I think Craig runs red. Um, yep, he just said that. They are the Woodmiser equipment, so they are red. Yeah. So, and he loves his. Now he's under a roof, as he points out in the chat right there, so he can see it easily. So I think that's key. Maybe red's better. It seemed like the general consensus was towards green versus red. But I think if you're under a roof, it ain't going to matter. But if you're out in the sun, unless you've got like a 100-watt laser that's burning the logs, right? I don't know that you're going to see it. And I've worked with lasers in telecom for years, right? And to get a light spectrum that shows up in a different color in direct sunlight is dang near impossible. It's not like Star Wars, right? It's just not. So anyway, I think lasers have a place. I really do. And I'm glad that I put mine on my mill. And if you're going to do it on an LT40 or above, it is so easy to put it into the 12-volt system that I would highly recommend it. You just flip a switch, turn it on, turn it off, away you go. So I hope for you to see that laser in action in the near future, because I will be doing a lot more milling. I'm going to bring the sawmill up to our cabin, up to our property, so we can do a bunch of milling up there over the next week and a half, not this week, but the following. And the weather should be good, and I might even have some lower light days there that I can really start to get to use that laser. But then I'm going to come bring the sawmill back down here, which is 267 miles. So if anybody wonders how much you can tow a sawmill, I got news for you. I tow mine thousands upon thousands of miles. But I'm going to bring it down here. I got a bunch of logs to mill up for a friend of the family here that I've been putting off for a while because of my back and my mill and his back, and we'll get that done. Then it's going to go back to the cabin and probably sit there for a month or two or longer. And by sit there, I mean I ain't going to move it. I'm going to park it where the logs are and get all those logs milled, and then I'm either going to move it to a better location with a new log deck so that I can bring logs in, because the one thing I didn't think about when I set this log deck up that I have, and if you haven't seen that video, there's a video I put out in May, early to mid-May, about building a log deck. And the funny thing about that video is I only intended to mill those logs, be done, and pull the mill out. That was it. It just it's a dozen logs, 30, whatever. It wasn't that many logs. And so it's not a permanent location, and it never will be unless I turn the mill around. And I don't want to turn the mill around there because then I'll be pushing logs uphill. And I like to set my sawmill up a little bit downhill of the log deck, right? Make gravity work for you. Work smarter, not harder, right? Let's see. Woodmiser has a video on YouTube, how to check dry belt tension for LT40, LT50 portable sawmills with auto clutch. Yeah, I think I saw that one. If I remember correctly, I saw that video. I think it was helpful, but I didn't feel it was enough, and I wanted to do one, and again, it's hard to film, but I wanted to do one where I really was able to get into the nuts and bolts and show you how to do it. And it's been tough. So I will try to do it. I intend to do it. I've got some more cameras and more attachments I can use now than I did the last time I tried it. So I think we can get it done. And we'll try to do that. So, all right. Replaced the dry belt on mine a few times. I've never adjusted the tension. Well, the LT28 might be different than the LT40, and you probably have a manual clutch too. Not that that's totally different, but in short, I mean, the bottom line is if your drive belts start to wear, which they do as soon as you start using them, right? The moment you hit the clutch and go, that drive belt wears. It's just that it wears microscopically, and so it takes hours and hours of running. I want to say Woodmiser says something like every 100 hours to check your drive belt tension. Might be 50, but it could be 100. And that makes sense to me, because if you even if you only run 100 hours a year, then you're going to adjust your drive belt tension every year. Now, I will tell you, I think I've only replaced the drive belts on mine once. Knock on wood. I don't want to have to do it again right now, but it's not that big a deal. But you replace them, and then 20 hours later, you got to adjust it. So that's another thing, right? If you've got a brand new sawmill, you've got 20 hours, give or take. You're going to run about 20 hours, and you're going to start cutting waves. And you'll be scratching your head like, what the heck is going on here? I'm cutting waves. You put a new band on. You do all those other things people tell you to do, and it still cuts waves. Because 20 hours is about the time that the amount of runtime it takes for a brand new set of belts to get bedded in and stretch a little bit. And then you've got to tighten them up. And then you're going to run another 100 hours before you got to do it again. So if you're new to LT40, LT35 and above, maybe mills like Arrowheads, that initial 20 hours, that's normal. The band is stretching. It's just kind of getting worn in. You adjust it, and then you go another 100 hours, and then you do it again. And if you're production sawing, so you want to pay your mill off in a year or so, and you're out there cranking out, you're putting out, maybe 10, 12, 15 hours of milling in a weekend. It ain't going to take you very long, maybe a few months, and you'll be out on a job, and all of a sudden, it's cutting waves, and changing a band and tightening things up ain't going to do it. You're going to have to pull everything apart, tighten up that drive belt tension right there in the field. And that don't cost the customer, right? I don't care whether you're charging by the board for it or by the hour. That's something you don't charge the customer for. So you're working on your own time then. Good times. Manual clutch, yep. Oh, looks like Landon's back. Hi, Landon. Drive belt tension. Let's see. Manual clutch. Yeah, Nick at Woodmiser does a pretty good one. A pretty good video or a pretty good changeover. I'm had to decrease the tension on my LT50 from factory. Only had 9 hours. Decrease the tension, huh? Should check every 50. Okay. I wasn't sure if it was 50 or 100. I actually run about 14 and a half pounds. And interestingly enough, Kevin Bales runs 17. And he and I talked about that. And he said, you know what? I run 17 and I never have a problem. And if I've got to change the bearings out or something at some point, I don't care. And he had 2,200 hours on his mill. I'm not going to argue with that. Now, he does have a slightly different mill. And I noticed this. He mentioned once that he had 27 and a half horse. Mine's 26 and a half. I didn't know there was a 27.5, but his is a wide. So in 2016, when I bought my mill, and I bought it, I think I ordered it in either, must have been the very beginning of 2016, like January 1st. It may have been that weekend because I picked it up in early February. And back in those days, you could do that, right? But it was 26.5 horse, and there was no wide head. That didn't exist yet. That came out in 17. And so Kevin's is a little bit different. And the wide heads, maybe they have different tension. I don't know. It could be. But his is definitely different. So just kind of a little sidebar for you. And like I said, I run 14.5. So you will find what works. The other thing I will tell you is that when you're measuring the tension, you want to always measure it in the same location. Again, something I should show you in a video when I get a chance to make it. You should always do it in the same location as much as possible. So what I use is I use an 18-inch, like a machinist's ruler, 18-inch. And when I set that ruler up in there, I go to 9 inches, and I always use 9 inches. That's what I do. And always set the ruler on the upper end. There's a stop up there. I hit that stop, and I measure from there. And the reason I do it the same every time, so I can be consistent. It's all about being consistent. Oh, he does in a demo and adjustment video. Okay, well that's good. 700 on your LT40 wide, and haven't had to really 700 hours, and you've never adjusted the drive belt tension or replaced the belts. That's wild. I've never heard of that. But you're right. And he mentions right there, he says every sawmill and every sawyer has their own scenarios. Yes, I have talked to guys that have gotten 1,000 board feet out of bands that I can never get more than 500 out of. I've talked to guys that run all by themselves and they can only do 100 board feet an hour. And I've talked to guys that say they're getting 300 board feet an hour by themselves, which me, by myself, yeah, 150 maybe, 150 to 200, depending on what I'm doing. And that's another thing. I love this. They rate sawmills by board feet an hour. So when you buy a brand new sawmill, you're like, man, this sawmill's rated at 550 board feet an hour, or whatever that mill's rated at. That's what mine's rated at. You ain't getting 550 board feet an hour unless you're milling beans or 4x or maybe 2x if you've got 500 board foot logs that you're milling, and heavy equipment bringing the logs in and heavy equipment bringing the lumber out, and a crew of like 4 to 6 guys making sure that you never have to stop and helping you clean your saw head. I've done it. I mean, I pushed that I did a job. I did 40,000 board feet for this one customer, and we got milling over 500 board feet an hour for a number of days, where we would be, 7 hours and over 3,500 board feet of lumber. But that's me walking back and forth nonstop for that 7 hours. And whenever we had to do a band change, they had the air compressor out there with a high pressure nozzle ready to go. As soon as I shut that mill down and let them know it was band change time, stuff started happening, right? They were cleaning the mill for me. They got the wood off the mill in time. They got new logs set up. They kept the mill head clean. All I had to do was pull the band off, go get another band, come back, put the band on, tighten it up, and go. That's how you get 500 to 550 board feet an hour on an LT40. And they had big logs, right? They had bought 150 logs from a plywood mill that the logs were all oversized. And for that plywood mill, they couldn't take anything that was 24 inches or larger. So it didn't matter which end, small end, big end, didn't matter. So it's big end 24, kick it away. We're not doing it. So this guy bought 150 logs, and he had a hell of a deal. It was like, I don't know, maybe 150 or $1,500 or $1,000 or something. And each one of those logs was like 18.5 feet long. So imagine that log yard, 150 of them. And he had a big front end loader that he would go in and he would grab a log, drive over, drop the log right on my forks. And then I would load the log up, and that first slab got done. I didn't have to touch a slab. I didn't have to touch a piece of lumber, because as soon as I was done cutting it, after I showed them how to do it, most days he would have like 6 guys. And so he'd have 2 guys off bearing and 4 guys kicking back, not doing a whole lot, bull crapping and kicking around. And as soon as those guys, got done a log, 2 fresh guys came in to do the next log. So there was always fresh off bears. So we were cranking out the lumber. So when you buy a mill and it says you can do 500 or 1,000 or whatever, how many board feet an hour, that's optimum, absolute best. You're in the money. Everything is working for you. And I've even done it sorta on 8-footers. But what I did is I said, this is how much this log is, and I did the log in like 8 minutes. And so I went, well, if I multiply that by this to get 60 minutes, it's going to be 560 board feet an hour. And it's true, yeah. And that was loading it and getting it off the deck. So yes, you could do that even with shorter logs, and I think it was 1-bys. But the reality is most guys I know that run, for example, the LT40s in a good production environment are doing 300 board feet an hour, give or take, right? Not as good a crew, making 1-bys, 250, 270, usually 270, 275. Really good crews making 2-bys, 400, right? But so that's the other thing. Sawmills might be rated to do one thing, but that don't mean they're going to do it. Just saying. I get the mill on the 8th, so you have basically 2.5 weeks to get the belt tension video out. All right. Challenge accepted. We'll see if we can get her done. It doesn't take me long to do one. That's the funny part. Doing the tension is not hard. It's the break that is harder to do. And I don't know why that is. You wouldn't think the break would be a challenge. Dry belt tension's pretty easy. You go in, you loosen some jam nuts up and, move the turnbuckle, tighten up, check it, make sure it's good to go. But now you've got to adjust the brake. And that's, I think, what gets most people. Got Kevin, when he was out here milling, his brake wasn't hardly touching at all. Now, I don't know if it was because his was worn out because he had 2,200 hours on it, or if it was something else. Oh, hey, Heather, nice to see you. But so the brake's the one that is, I can go in, loosen up everything, tighten up the dry belt tension, check it, it's good to go, and do that in 10 minutes or less, and then spend 20 minutes getting my brake sorted out. And usually with the brake, I go a little too far, one direction or the other. And the trick, I think the biggest trick with anything on these mills is to not do that. Go in small increments, just like when you're doing an alignment, right? When you're trying to align the band itself, you want to go in very, very small increments as you make those adjustments doing an alignment. And if you haven't done an alignment, go check out some of my alignment videos. You should be able to find them. I know I did them at least a year and a half ago, probably close to a year and a half. But when you adjust those, you got to get it just right. And it's, it's easy to overdo it. So just something to pay attention. And here's another one for you. You guys want to laugh at me? I got one for you that you'll really like. So these lives are just an open book, folks. But if you've ever looked at those 12-inch machinist rules, you ever really looked at one? If you look at them closely, you will notice that 0 does not start at the bottom or the side of the rule. So if you've got a metal, machinist rule that's, 12 inches long or 18 inches, right? A lot of times there's about a 1/4 inch between the edge of the metal and the start of the ruler. Well, I was in the field working on a job. It was last year in September, October, I think. And I noticed something didn't seem right. My last piece of lumber kept being off. And I don't have that problem. I can mill to the deck. So what's going on? So I pulled out my machinist's rule and I threw it up on the mill. What I do is I always take the head and I drop the head down to like 10 or 12 inches. And then I make sure it's right on the line where I'm going to cut at. And then I take my machinist rule and I run the head so that the band is sitting over one of the bunks. And I throw my ruler up there. So I threw my ruler up there and I went 12 inches is perfect. And then I looked at the ruler. And I went, oh, you dummy. It's 12 1/4 inches is what it was, or close to it, because the ruler I was using, I hadn't really paid attention to it and had that 3/16 to a 1/4 inch gap between the edge of the steel and the start of the actual ruler. So if you have one of those, go take a look, because you might want to bear that in mind next time you go to adjust this, the scale on the mill. I thought it got knocked out driving down the road, which I've had happen before. So I'm in the field, mill's been bounced all over the place, the scale's off, you pull a ruler out, adjust the scale, and away you go. I had done that, only I guess when I had done it, I didn't catch that ruler was like that, and I felt like a total schmuck, tell you the truth, because I'm like, I tell people how to get every board to be the same all the way to the deck, and here I am milling an 1 1/4 inch piece off the bottom when I'm making 1 inch stuff. Open book. I make mistakes, and it's those mistakes that I learn by, though, and that's why I like to share them, right? Because I hope that maybe it helps you out. So Timothy, when you go to adjust the height of that mill head, because you can do that, you can adjust the scale, right? You set your mill at 12 inches, you set your band fully tensioned 3,000 pounds, and folks, if Woodmiser tells you 2,800 to 3,000 pounds, my rule of thumb is 3,000 pounds, but it's okay if it drops to 2,800. But I'll tighten it back up to 3,000 the first chance I get. Kevin runs his at 32 to 34, which surprised me. And he said, you know what? I'm going to replace my band wheel bearings anyway, so to hell with it. I'd rather run it up there. He also breaks bands more than me, so that could be it too. But I love Kevin, great guy, right? The guy's, he's a mover and shaker. But 3,000 pounds, period. So you set it at 3,000 pounds, nice new band also. Always use a new band when you do this. Run it up over a bunk, set your mill head at 12 inches, throw the ruler up there, and make sure, if you have one like mine, either cut the bottom off or pay attention to that gap. Measure the gap and mark it on your ruler. 12 inches plus this 1/4 inch or whatever is 12 inches actually on the deck. And you can then loosen up the bolts on the scale itself, and it'll slide up and down, and you just adjust it. Done. Way you go. But as far as getting down 1 inch on the deck, I did one because I saw a lot of folks on the Facebook groups asking, how come I'm always, an 1 1/4 inch or 1 1/8 or a fat inch when I get to the deck when I'm milling 7/8 of an inch or whatever? That's all due to starting points. They were thinking it was simple set. It's not. Simple set just is that simple. It's going to go down 1 inch or 7/8 or whatever you tell it to. You want to make 1 inch boards, you set it to 1 1/8 and away you go. But my best example is if you're milling on the evens. So what milling on the evens is let's say you want to make some 1x6s, but you're okay with them being 7/8 of an inch as opposed to 3/4, which I would never mill a 1x at 3/4 of an inch. So just saying, I'm going to mill them at 7/8 or a full fat 1 inch. So let's say you want 1x, but 7/8 is fine. You'll live with that because you're only going to shrink a 1/16 of an inch anyway, and that'll leave you a 1/16 of an inch you can plane off. So you're fine, right? And it's going to shrink. SPF shrinks about a 1/16 of an inch in a 2x4 when it dries. Okay, that's just the forestry rule. So when you set your simple setup, you don't set it for 7/8, you set it for 1 inch. Well, the mistake that most people make, they've got a cant and they build the cant to 12 inches and they set their simple set at 1 inch and they think that means that they're going to go chunk, 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 chunk all the way down and get 7/8 inch boards. The problem is not. When it gets to the last board, it'll be sitting at 1 inch because you started at 12 and you went down 1 inch. So your last board is going to be 1 inch. So you don't mill the cant to 12 inches. You mill it to 11 7/8. And if you start at 11 7/8 and you go down, chunk, 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 your last cut's at 7/8 of an inch. All boards are the same size. And it's not even a trick. It's just what you learn as you mill one of those things. Now, I don't know. I showed, did you guys see on my community page the picture I showed of the clipboard? I don't know if you guys saw that. I should grab that and show you this thing. I think it's hilarious. But Timothy, this could help you out. This guy goes back a long time, especially because the size of the logs, the biggest log I have on here is 24 inches. So if you look at this, you see that? Well, what I did is I built this clipboard when I had my LT10, and that way, whenever I went out on a job, because I actually did jobs once I put that LT10 on a trailer, I started milling for people. I took this with me, and I ended up not using it as much as I thought I did. But in the beginning, I did. I would look at it, and I would look at like one of these is a cant thing somewhere on here, cant size up here. So it says if I have a 17-inch log, I can get a 12 by 12 cant. So I would look at this. I'd measure the log on the small end. Oh, I got 18 and a half inches. That means I can get a 13 by 13 cant. Now, today, I don't run that way. But that's if you do that in the beginning where you set something up like I had this clipboard, you can just kind of plan out ahead of time what you're going to do. I used to scale the logs and do all that stuff. I don't do that anymore. I honestly, and by the way, Craig, you're there, but I didn't see any questions. You told me you're going to ask some questions. I'm just giving you a hard time. We'll get into Greenwood and Drywood here pretty soon if I want to get Craig chatting. But if you where was I at? I got all distracted by Craig. Honestly, when you first start out, that's how you do it, right? You just know I can get a 13-inch or 12-inch or 10-inch or 9-inch cant. Today, I kind of don't work that way. What I do is I typically will, because I mill different dimensions for different people. Right? One customer wants everything at 7/8, one wants it in an inch, one wants an inch and an eighth, one wants it in 6. I've actually had one customer want it in 16ths of an inch. And that's why Simple Set is great, because you can set it to whatever they want plus an eighth of an inch, and away you go. The eighth of an inch is for the curve. But the trick then is how tall to make the cant and how wide. And that's something that I hope to also talk about in a video. I had a video I started, and then my mill wasn't running right, so I didn't do it. And it was odds over evens or something like that is what I was going to call it. But it was about whether you should split a log into 2 parts or 2 cants. And if you do, how you should do that versus into 3. And I know sawyers that have done millions of board feet that will not split a log in. They won't split it in 6 and 6 because they're not going to split the pith, but they will do 6 and 4 occasionally. Normally, though, what they'll do is pull jacket boards down to 6 inches and then cut 6 inches from there. So if you're doing 2 by 6s, they'll take the outer 3 inches on either side and go an inch and an inch or whatever, or 4 and 2, and they'll take the jacket boards out in 2-inch increments to leave 6 inches in the center, and then they'll cut their 2 by 6s right out of that. And it's to avoid splitting the pith, produce superior lumber. But there is another way. You can do 6 and 4s, not the best, but you can. And the other way is if you had a wider cant, like a 12-inch cant, you could do 4, 4, and 4. If you had an 18-inch, you could do 6, 6, and 6. And that's what I mean by odds over evens. In other words, it's better to have an odd number of beams you cut out of a cant, or multiple cants you make in a log, versus an even number, 2. You don't want 2. You don't want 4, because then you're likely to split the pith and the juvenile wood and produce inferior lumber. Michael Weller, hey buddy, wow, long time no see. Mica Peak Solutions Saw Calc Pro is a great app that I use to build the cant. Hey, Joe Main's here. Timothy Christensen, there's Joe Main right there. Timothy's mill is going to show up in September on the 8th, and he was thinking, Woodmiser has a sale, and he was thinking about getting some bands, and Craig and I both told him he needed to give you a call. So Tim, there's Joe. If you did put your comment down below, maybe Joe will answer it there for me, or Joe, if you want to drop your phone number right here, that's fine. Absolutely. Okay. Sorry. Let's see. So Michael, I'm surprised actually, but so let me ask you. So guys, Michael Weller started milling about the same time I did, I think. And I actually think we were running head and head for a while, and he's long since surpassed me and milled over 1 million board feet. And maybe you're up, are you about 1.5 million now, Mike? I mean, it's been a while since we talked, so could be. But 400 plus 1x6 ponderosas. Love it. I love ponderosa. But you mill stationary now though, right? So I'd be curious how that Micah Peak Solutions, is that a free app or do you got to pay for it? I'm curious because I don't, Kevin showed me an app he used to calculate his hours on the job. I write mine down. So if you guys have ever seen my videos, you'll notice that I've got a little logbook kind of thing. It's actually a Write in the Rain book that I stick under the cover when I'm milling, and I just clamp it down with that, and I write everything in that book, and it's just the way I run. I find it easier than trying to pull my phone out and use my phone. But I'd be interested in the app on building cans if you can put in, like if a customer says I want 1 5/8 by 7 1/4, or I want 2 3/16 by, you know, 7 1/2 or whatever. I'd be curious because I do get requests for some pretty oddball stuff at times. And those are the ones. Usually I can figure it out fairly quickly because I've done it enough, as I'm sure you have, but that would be something I'd be interested in. So just, Michael, if you're typing it out, great. If not, send it to me somewhere else. I'm curious. And folks, check it out. I don't know. We might have to check this Micah Peak out. Trust me, if Michael Weller's telling you that it works, it's probably worth having a look at, guys. He's built a lot of lumber. He's up north of me. And Michael Weller, in fact, Mike, you're still on here, right? I'm talking about bringing my cameras up there to your location. So it was free, but it's now like $2 one-time payment. I pay $2 for an app like that. Why not? Right? That'd be fun. So Michael Weller, guys, I think you've got an LT40 just exactly like mine too. And I want to bring my cameras up to your location and film you like I did with Kevin Bale. So if you're up for it, no, drop my line. You've got my number. Shoot me a note on IM or text or whatever, and let's get together. I'm available now. I'm not working, so I've got some time to come out and film some guys. So there you go. Uh, we're gonna get milling again too, but I absolutely want to get out to Kevin's location in Plummer and your location. And Lowell Bloom over in Moxie. He's got an LT15. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I haven't been on a smaller mill like that in a while. And I should also be going and hanging out with Jason in November. No, maybe he and I might do something. That could be a lot of fun if we do. And if you know who I'm talking about, I think you'll know it'd be a lot of fun. But it looks like it breaks down in 1/8 of an inch. Well, I mean, you usually tell a customer, I mean, I don't know, maybe that would work. I'd have to try that. Because 1/8 of an inch, I mean, I had some strange stuff though. So I want to say I had a guy want, some, and it makes sense. If you think about SPF, right? I mostly mill SPF. And if you don't know what SPF is, that's okay. It's spruce, pine, fir. So in the forestry industry, that's what they call it, SPF. They will tell you that a 2x4 will shrink a 16th of an inch in drying. So you could get a customer, and I have had, who I always advise go 1 5/8. That's what I advise. You've got plenty of shrinkage then. But you could have one that says, I want you to go a 16th over. Oh, okay, I can do that, right? I mean, that's what Simple Set's all about. Oh, you're still waiting on the LT70. You and Kevin both. So Kevin's waiting on his LT50. You're waiting on an LT70. And I'm still sitting here like Magic Man with my LT40. But I might try to get a seat on it one of these days if I keep limping the way I have been. Right on. That's awesome. Michael, I don't know if you've talked to Joe Main, have you? I know you know about him because you're on Forestry Forum, though I haven't seen you a whole lot on there. Yes, you got it right. Good old Jason. Yeah, we actually had a really good visit last year, and it's kind of funny. It's around my sister's birthday in the beginning of November, and just happened to, the ladies are going to go shopping. So what am I going to do? So Jason invited me to come hang out with him, and we didn't do any filming. We just BS'd. Had a really good visit, but we might just do the same thing this time. But we have talked about doing some kind of collaboration just for fun, and I've suggested, and you guys, you could chime in on this one. I've suggested that we just sit around a fire and BS and do a live. That could be fun. And I've also talked about doing it with Mike Wilson, he lives down south in Oregon. And the other thing I've talked about doing, and I haven't arranged it yet, so I apologize for that. It's been a busy last month for me. is I want to start doing maybe once a month or once every other month a multiple Sawyer live, like we did with Two Brothers Outdoors. I'm thinking that that would be really fun to do about every other month. Get like 3 or 4 of us. I don't know if you want to do more than 3 or 4, though you could do pop-ins and outs, right? Um, but I think it's fun. And one of the reasons is that, and again, I point this out in an upcoming video, and I didn't call you out, Craig, but I was thinking of you. But, we all, I mean, you spend enough time on a sawmill, you learn things. And you're going to find certain things that when you try to express it to somebody else, it doesn't always come across the right way. You try, but it doesn't always. Some guys, you don't understand you. But if you get like 3 or 4 Sawyers together, they're all going to agree on things. I mean, guys, look, there's logs are logs, lumber's lumber, mills are mills, right? They all do the same thing. They just do it a little differently. And you'll find that once you do that, different guys can express things differently. And I think that's really healthy. So I really enjoyed being on with John Davis from Davidson's All Natural Gym, with Rick and Tim at Two Brothers Outdoors, and we had Mike Wilson on. We almost got Craig on. I've also done it with Paul and Andy from Southern Adirondack Outdoors. And it's actually kind of fun to do that because you get kind of different points of view and you get to share them and you can ask questions and then get 3 answers that are reasonably close. But you might find that that answer works better or rings true to you on something. So I think those are fun. But we'll see if Jason and I do something. I threatened to do a drag race with him, but it wouldn't be fair. You know, it wouldn't make sense. But I actually thought about doing a comparison video, not really a drag race, but do a comparison video, park an LT35 and an LT40 side by side, and then go over those 2 mills, because there are some pretty significant differences. And I also talk about that in an upcoming video, about some of the differences, kind of that LT25 or LX25, I guess it is, to the LT35, and then kind of to the LT40 and above. And it's my personal opinion, but I kind of discussed that a little bit because there are some big differences there. And whether or not, like I see guys ask, should I get this? Should I get that? And I think you'd get like 12 different opinions in 5 minutes if you ask. But I do think that once you get into the LT40 world and above, you're talking a high production mill environment. And there are guys out there. Michael's one of them, joined us tonight. Kevin, you might have seen him on some of my videos, that have put a lot of logs through these mills. And you can, right? I've known guys that have 10,000 hours on LT40s. I mean, I bet Magic Man's got 20,000 hours on his. I don't know. He's got to have, although I think he did upgrade. Michael, I don't know if you know, but I know at one point he said he started on a 19 horse LT40 and now he's running a 51 or something like that. So whether he just upgraded his old mill or bought the super and went that route, I can't remember. Because how many years has it been since we've been on forestry forum now? 14, 15. It's been a while. But all right, we got any other questions here? I've been going just over an hour, so I've still got a little bit of time, guys. If you've got some more questions, throw them out there. Let's hear them. I'm always happy to answer them. That's why I do these, and that's what it's all about, trying to help folks out. So, and Michael, you didn't answer my question about. Oh, you did. You said sure, and then I caught the LT70 and I got a little distracted. So yes, we're gonna do that. I'm gonna have to figure out when, and you're gonna have to tell me some good times. It won't be, obviously not in the winter. I don't know that I want to drive up there in the winter in the snow, but I'm thinking sometime in the next month or so. I'll be out of pocket milling and doing cabin work. I'm going to be up at the cabin one way or another. I've got lots of work to do up there. So yes, there'll be some more off-grid cabin videos coming out. I've got to go in and try to, I've got so much work to do up there. One, I had so much snow and ice last year, that it actually didn't just break my gray water vent pipe. It actually tore my roof. And so the roof sheeting and the metal roofing literally got torn by the pressure of the amount of snow and ice that was on the roof. So I've got to try to beat all of that back, put some blocking in there. I got to try to fix that. The pipe is broken. I got to try to fix that. I've got to put a new hot water heater in. I've got to move my batteries. I got to do all kinds of work, and I'm not going to get it all done in the next week, but I'm going to get some done. I'm going to be up there getting some of that done, and I'm planning on trying to get the dozen logs I have up there now to mill done and out of the way, get all them sawn up so that I can move on. I've also got to start falling more trees, though I'm probably not going to have a gas chainsaw in action up there this coming period because of fires. But I've got an electric saw that I can use, so I'll be using that Echo. And if you've seen my video on that Echo DCS 5000 battery powered chainsaw, yep, I'm still using it. And that video, I think I filmed it a year and a half ago. So that little saw is fantastic. I don't believe that those battery powered saws are ever going to replace saws like my big 572, but for the little stuff, they work fantastic. Blue collar voices. Hey, there you are. A few minutes ago, I meant to catch it from the beginning. No worries. My brother called. It was an important issue. Hey, no problem, buddy. That's John, folks. John, we never did sit down and do a chat, and we need to do that one of these days too before you decide to leave. So I know you're planning on doing some moving and shaking here, but if you're still up here in my neck of the woods over the course of the next few weeks or something, maybe we get together, and like I said, maybe we do it at the cabin, but we'll have to do a sit down. And John's got blue collar voices, folks. He's a pretty cool guy. John actually came out to an annual party we had and we spent an evening, but truth is there was 30 people there. So he ended up talking to a lot of folks. So I think he enjoyed it. But we actually met. Great guy. I really enjoyed the visit. I hope that we get to visit again pretty soon. So, all right. Any questions? Craig, I'd love to come down and film your operation, but I don't know. That's a long ways to go. I'm getting old. That would probably take me 2 days to drive just to Utah now. But so we'll definitely get Michael. Who else we got out here? I know, Timothy, you're going to be too far for me to come film. Sorry, buddy. It's quite awesome. Hey, thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. But who else is on here? We got a few more folks. I see a lot of folks pop in and out, and it's kind of funny because sometimes they're still here, but it doesn't show them. So if you're here and you haven't said anything, do me a favor. Just drop a comment down in the little chat section on the side and let me know you're here. And if you don't know the folks that are here, I will tell you, it's quite the cadre of folks that are here. Arrowhead Woodsman runs an LT28 manual, and you've had that mill for a little while. You've done quite a bit of milling on that. And then Michael Weller, I said earlier, past 1 million board feet, I'm sure. Michael, are you at 1.5 million now? Craig, the Kilton Sawyer, he's got 2 sawmills. An LT40 and an LT50, both of which have more hours on them now than my mill does. You've got Joe Main. Joe Main is your guy to get. I mean, come on. If you guys haven't heard about Joe Main on Outdoors, Out of the Woods Sawmill with Nathan, right? I don't know why my brain is fried today. Joe Main is the guy to get your bands from. You're going to get them fast. You're going to get good prices, free shipping, continental United States. Joe's a great guy to deal with, and I've said this before. I'm just saying it. The best sawyers I know get their bands from Joe. And I didn't ever. And Michael, I don't know if you know this. I didn't know that I could get them here in Washington from Joe because he's all the way down in Georgia. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to get bands from him. Yep. 2 days later, I had a box of bands. It's fantastic. So 20 years. Yeah, I kind of had a feeling you'd milled a little. There's who else is on here? I know I saw somebody else on here that's got a little bit of time on a sawmill. Maybe they just popped in and popped out and didn't comment. Maybe, but yeah, there's quite. Oh, Desert Hobo. I knew I'd seen another one. He's got a lot of time and experience on a mill too. He's spent quite a bit of time. So there's all kinds of great. Oh, only 1,250,000, give or take. You're slacking off. What happened, buddy? Come on. I figured you'd be telling me no closer to 2 million by now. You're catching up to Magic Man. Still, 1.25 million. That's a lot, folks. I don't know if people know how much that really is, right? I mean, 100,000. When I made 100,000, I was pretty stoked about that, right? That's 100,000. You build two houses with that. Um, a million board feet, that's like 20 houses easily, maybe more. Yeah, that's serious, John. So, and Michael's not that far away. He's up in Spokane, I'll tell you. Um, Kevin Ailes is in Plummer, Idaho. He's got over a million. And there's another guy, Michael. I know there's another one in the Coeur d'Alene area that was over a million several years ago. I just can't remember who it was any longer. But and to think that I used to be the most active sawyer in Eastern Washington, that's changed a whole lot. That was back in, I want to say it was 2018 when Woodmiser told me that. Boy, times have changed, huh? But anyway, so what else we got here? We got 8 folks here, winding down a little bit. So we're at an hour and a half. I'm happy to give you at least one or two more answers. So if you've got your questions, throw them out there. Doesn't matter, whatever it's about. You want to know about the cabin, off-grid power, heck, I'd answer Jeep questions. I got Jeep content coming out too. I don't know if you guys watch the Jeep stuff I do occasionally. I don't do it as often because it's not my main focus, but I do some Jeep stuff. Let me just make sure this isn't important. I have had people text me questions. Nope. Um, that's my sister Heather, who was on this chat. So I have people sometimes text me questions instead of typing them here. And so I do check my phone in case it's something like that. But I do have some Jeep stuff coming out for the Jeep folks out there. I've got some fun runs that we're doing. We're actually going on a ghost town trip here soon. I don't know if you're into that stuff. I did a few videos, I don't know, a couple years ago, back in 21, where we did some ghost town trips. And the funny thing is I really didn't know what I was doing when it came to YouTube. And frankly, folks, if you want to know about YouTube, I'll tell you the truth. If you number one rule of thumb on YouTube is put the content out, put it out often. You'll eventually learn. You noticed I left MeWe. Yes, I did. That was more of a political thing. So when it comes to politics, I try not to get into politics on social media. On MeWe, I did let my hair down there quite a bit. And then MeWe themselves kind of went in a direction that I just couldn't support. And I decided not to give them my money. And I left there. Now, in part, though, to be honest, it's because I was using Facebook that I had left years ago and never intended to go back to. But I used Facebook to communicate with you folks about the channel, and I still just do that there. I actually liked MeWe. I think it was a good platform. I just decided that I'm only going to have one of those kind of platforms that I use. Part of that, honestly, is, folks, if you do YouTube and stuff like this, it's tough to keep up. So I also do Instagram, and I had at one point about 5,400 followers on Instagram. It's down around 52 something now because I'm not keeping it up. And that's what happens. It's hard to try to keep each platform up going at the same time. He wasn't at Jake's this year. As far as I know, he's fine. He just answered me today. I know I saw something from him. I thought he was going. But he did just answer something today, I want to say, for me. So, I mean, he's still out there on Forestry Forum. So, as far as I know, he's doing good. He was actually trying to convince me to go to Jake's this year. And unfortunately, just timing wasn't working for me. So, I committed to try to get there next year. So, for those in the southern part of the states, I do plan on getting to Jake's next year, assuming he has it next year. I will try to get out there. I'd love to go out there and meet some of those guys. Guys like Jake, Custom Sawyer, you might know him as that. Jake Dean has, I mean, come on. You want to talk about guys that mill millions of board feet of lumber. There's your guy, right? But there's several folks from Forestry Forum that go and meet there. All of them I learned from. So for me, it'll be like, wow, I get to meet these guys, because I've not really been able to meet, other than the few of us that are out here in the Northwest, which isn't very many, strangely. So Anyway, yeah, so there's your MeWe answer. It's just again, what I was kind of saying is it's tough sometimes. Like I'll be honest with you guys, I spend 4:30-ish a.m., maybe 5 at the latest, until about noon every day editing video. And so it's literally a full-time job just to try to edit video 5 days a week. And then in the afternoons I'm trying to be in the shop, or do something else, but I still have to try and get stuff out there occasionally throughout that period of time too. So and my channel's pretty small, right? So you think 10,000 subscribers, that's a pretty good number, but the truth is I can't imagine somebody that's got 300,000 subscribers, right? That's full time, big time. Now mind you, they're making money, they can pay someone to help them, I'm sure. I'm not. But it is a full-time gig, and you might ask yourself, why on earth would anybody do it? I do it because I enjoy it. I do. I've always been someone who's liked sharing information with people, teaching people, and just that kind of stuff. That's something I've always enjoyed to do, and that's the main reason I do it. I do it for you guys, but I enjoy doing it. Robert Milton. Oh yeah, no, both of those guys go. Robert Milton is Hobby Hardwoods, Alabama. Robert's kind of funny. He and I, we've kind of bumped heads once or twice. I really like him. He's probably one of the most knowledgeable guys. But one time in particular, he had said he had posted something, and I was like, "Wait, what? No!" And then in the end, he said, "I'm talking about hardwoods." And it's kind of funny because then you're like, "Oh, okay, I guess that makes sense." But you always, and that's something about YouTube, folks, is that if you see something, sometimes somebody's going to say something, and you might think, but try to always remember it might be in context. And I didn't remember that because all he does is hardwoods, right? Which is 90% of what I do, softwoods, completely different worlds. I do production. He does custom, very, very fine, ultimate grade hardwood sawing, right? I mean, if you want the best hardwood sawing out there, you probably need to go watch Hobby Hardwoods. You're going to see how to do it. I can't even, I mean, I would have to spend time with him for a few years to learn how to saw like that. I mean, that guy has it down to an art on how to mill hardwoods. Unbelievable. And he used to do production sawing. It isn't that he hasn't done that. He just got away from it. For me, it's 95% or better production sawing on softwoods. Totally different environment. And if you talk to guys like Magic Man, that's his environment, right? He's primarily a production sawyer. I don't know that he's that much on softwoods because I know he does a lot of other stuff, but I do think he's mostly softwoods. But he's all about production as well. In fact, I learned so much from him in terms of when you watch folks work or talk to guys about sawing. Magic Man has been one of my biggest influences, which is why you hear about him on some of my videos. You'll occasionally hear me mention him. It's because I've just learned so much from him that I got to tell you that, right? I didn't learn this on my own, right? Somebody else has helped me out. Going to Jake's has always been on my list. Well, Michael, how about next year? You and me, buddy, we'll go out next year. Come on, throw that gauntlet down. I better start saving now. I'm not working, so YouTube's not funding travel for me from here to Georgia. It would take a lot of those $3 and $4 days, which are the good ones, to pay for that airfare. Oh, good Lord. I got to run. Okay, Arrowhead. Listen, guys, I'm going to run too. It's just after 7. So I think we'll call it a night. I will be trying to do 2 of these a month. That is what I'm looking at right now. So keep your eyes out for those. I don't think I'll ever get to 1 a week, only because you know the drill. We're always out. If you're out sawing and doing that kind of stuff, you're not around. But I will throw this one question out for all of you. Is there another night during the week that works for you? Because I've been thinking about doing like a Wednesday night live. Those I could probably do more often. So if there's another night, Tuesday's out for me because that's our dinner with the Grands. But Monday, Wednesday, Thursdays, if any of those days works, let me know because I may look at doing that. And I've also looked at doing occasional morning live for those that are overseas. I did it once, but I made the mistake like I did with today's of having it unlisted accidentally instead of public. I'd fix it today, obviously, or you wouldn't be here. But I did that with my overseas one. So they didn't know I was going live. So we'll work on that. But if you go, make sure to document how long you get stranded in each airport. Oh, good Lord. Don't bring that up, Timothy. I'll go live in the airport. I almost did that in Denver. I was so mad. I mean, we spent over 24 hours in that airport. I almost went live. I was teeing it up, but I thought, who wants to watch the old jarhead walking around an airport ranting and raving about airlines? So we interviewed that gal and left it at that. So, all right, listen, folks, y'all have a great day. I'm going to let you go. Have a good night. The old jarhead out.